Bright, beautiful, ambitious. A young model with big plans for the future. Gary Isherwood with his own plans for the teenager, something much more sinister. This is Gary Isherwood now, his skinhead grown out and spruced up for the jury, but the same man. Just 3 weeks out of prison, he would mastermind a get-rich scheme with friend and old jailmate Andrew Hartley. They would abduct 18-year-old Natalie, inject her with drugs, take her to a Christchurch motel room and put her through 6 hours of sexual torture.
They were treating me like a toy and seeing how many different ways they could use it.
And that wasn't all they had planned. Isherwood, who's 26, and Hartley, aged 30, wannabe pimps. They wanted the teenager working the streets as a prostitute.
I feel their plans were to inject me more afterwards and put me on the streets.
The pair was so serious about getting into the prostitution business, they had a shopping list, factors to consider in setting up shop. And Natalie wasn't the only pretty teenager to fall victim to Isherwood's ways. He was sentenced to 8 years in jail for forcing a 14-year-old to take morphine, getting her hooked, putting her on the streets and making money off underage sex. Less than 3 weeks after leaving prison, he was up to his old tricks.
He told me he'd put a spell on me, which I thought was ridiculous. And I said, great, what kind of spell? And he said, I'm going to make you fall in love with me.
And then turn you into a prostitute.
Obviously. But he didn't get that far.
An early start in modelling, a protective childhood, but by 15, Natalie was dabbling in cannabis and acid. She was a bit of a rebel.
And my grandparents always tried to shelter me. They really did try their hardest to warn me of all the dangers out there and keep me away. I wanted to see why I couldn't go near that territory, basically.
But in May last year, the night of her 18th birthday, she met the sort of people her family had been trying to protect her from.
And that's when I met a very, very rough crowd. I was associating with people that looked the same, shaven heads, basically dangerous people.
So you were attracted to that?
Yes, I was.
Danger?
Yes.
One of the men she met, Damien Rahu, would become her boyfriend.
I was very attracted to this man that I was seeing, and I was just basically out to live.
He loved you?
I don't think he did, no.
Natalie moved into this Christchurch house with Damien and 3 male flatmates, one of them Andrew Hartley, Damien's childhood friend, an ex-con with drug and theft convictions.
And so I always got on with guys, better than girls. I felt safe around males.
But her sense of security around men was about to change. An unexpected visitor in July last year. Natalie was still in her 90 when Gary Isherwood arrived at the house. He was a friend of her flatmates, but she knew nothing of his criminal background.
I knew he got out of jail, but I didn't know why he went to jail. I didn't know why. Damien wouldn't tell me, and I'd never heard of him before.
Gary Isherwood seemed to be infatuated, calling her sexy, saying her boyfriend wasn't good enough for her, and he wanted her for himself. Was he hitting on you?
He started to hit on me, yes.
You weren't the tiniest bit attracted to him?
He's not ugly, but Damien was my partner, and I definitely did not want to have sex with him.
He asked to see her modelling portfolio, took away a souvenir photo, told her again she was beautiful, beautiful enough to make good money as a prostitute.
He said I could be out there making money.
What did you take to mean by that?
Yeah, as a prostitute.
Gary Isherwood left, but returned later that night for a few drinks.
He came over and sat in the lounge and struck up conversation with me.
As a friend?
Yeah. No, I think you're beautiful. No. It was different because there were people there.
But he obviously hadn't given up, had he?
He didn't give up, no. Not at all.
Far from giving up, about 8 o'clock, Gary Isherwood and Andrew Hartley followed Natalie up to the BP station. She planned to get cigarettes and cash and catch a bus to a party. The men watched Natalie from across the road, whistled out to her, asked her out for a drink. Agreeing to go was the first mistake she made that night. Did you not think that this was a dangerous thing to do, though, to go?
No, because we were in public. I didn't think it was dangerous at all. And I thought, well, this would be a chance for me to establish a good relationship with Gary where we can talk, because I didn't want Gary coming on to me every time that he saw me.
One drink led to another. Beer, tequila, and premixed vodka. One bar owner thought the teenage girl looked so frightened, she asked them to leave. Gary Isherwood was still being pushy.
I made it clear to him that I didn't want to have sex with him. And I don't know where he got the idea from that if I got drunk that I'd have sex with him.
Tends to happen, though.
Yeah, well, it's no excuse.
Between bars, they drove to a house in the suburbs. There was talk of rivies, a date rape drug, Rivotrol. Not long after that, Natalie saw a strange froth on her beer.
I did feel strange. The lights were definitely a lot brighter, just like the effects of ecstasy. Just like you were in another place.
After a couple of hours, Natalie knew she should leave. Damien Rahu, her boyfriend, has phoned her mobile 4 times, but she hasn't picked it up. He was a jealous boyfriend, and she was afraid to go back to him.
I don't want to go home, no. I've actually felt safer with Andrew and Gary at that stage.
Her reason? Andrew Hartley had stopped her from committing suicide a week before.
I tried to hang myself in the wardrobe.
You didn't feel you could turn to your family?
By that stage, I felt like it was my fault. I felt like I got myself here, and I didn't know whether I wanted to stay there or that it was up to me to get myself out of it. Andrew had told me at the first bar that I could trust him. It was okay, and I could trust him. I felt I was in a situation that I couldn't get out of. I couldn't control. I was too scared to go home. I felt differently tiddly. And when they brought up that they had pee on them, that did intrigue me.
It's pretty naive.
I was always told by my family that I'm naive.
Natalie agreed to go back to a motel with them and smoke pea. Earlier, Gary Isherwood had checked in under a false name. When they got there, it wasn't pea she was given, but intravenous drugs against her will.
And then Gary walked over towards me and he grabbed my left arm. And then I saw the needle and Andrew told me that it was for me, and I was injected. My whole body just went, and I collapsed on the bed. I remember opening my eyes to Gary on top of me.
Natalie was injected again, and while incapacitated, raped and sodomized. They left her bruised, cut and torn.
It was like he was filming some sort of porn movie. They just did anything and everything that you could think of and got me to do a numerous amount of things, really disgusting things.
Did you say, no, I don't want this?
At the motel, there were no no's.
And did you want it?
No. I was wondering what was going on.
The day after, puncture marks in her arm, methadone and Ritalin in her blood. The drugs had numbed the pain, but left her with a clear memory. She still wondered, though, whether it was her fault, until Gary Isherwood revealed his criminal past.
And I asked him, I said, when Andrew wasn't there, what did you go to jail for? And he said, for this.
Natalie wasn't the first vulnerable teenager to fall victim to Gary Isherwood's plans of pimphood. Here he is with another friend, another partner in crime, Michael Holdham. Both were jailed in 1999 for forcing a 14-year-old to take morphine, then putting her into prostitution to pay for her drugs. As 2020 reported back then, she worked the streets night after night for 3 months, earning Gary Isherwood around $10,000 a month.
No one says no to Gary.
Why not?
They're scared of him, even his best mates.
True to form, Gary Isherwood threatened his latest victim, Natalie, with violence to shut her up.
Gary told me that he wanted to cut me up into 1,000 pieces.
After the night at the motel, Gary Isherwood made arrangements for a friend to take Natalie to a brothel.
I mean, I know that I don't want to be a prostitute. I knew then I didn't want to be a prostitute.
Never done it before?
Never done it. Never been paid for sex. Of course I'm angry. They've ruined my life. There's a big chunk of my life has gone missing and has been destroyed.
Natalie told her boyfriend and her mother what had happened. Then she went to police. Gary Isherwood and Andrew Hartley were each charged with 10 counts of abduction, sexual violation, and injecting her with a Class B drug.
I don't think it's fair that they've probably done it to so many other girls.
Last month, the pair went on trial at Christchurch High Court. The jury weren't allowed to know about Gary Isherwood's past, his previous convictions. It came down to Natalie's credibility and her consent.
An unlawful sexual connection, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
Sexually violated, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
Both accused here are nasty pieces of work.
She gets onto his lap and rubs herself up and down, and you might think a fairly provocative sexual act. What did she expect would happen from there?
She didn't pull away, she didn't say no.
Did she consent? No. Quite the opposite. She told them earlier, no, I'm not going to have sex with you. And also, you have to look at the fact, well, the condition that she was in, she could not consent.
She's obviously a liar, and an accomplished one at that.
Sexual intercourse can be a bit of rough and tumble, and I suggest to you that people have different ways of engaging in this sort of activity.
Gary Isherwood and Andrew Hartley looked clean-cut in the dock, but when the jury left the room, intimidation tactics to witnesses, journalists and the public, glaring, obscene gestures, wiping a finger across their throats and mouthing, "You're dead, pig," to police. After a week-long trial, the jury retired to make its decision. For Natalie, a long wait for the verdict, plenty of time to reflect about life, her pregnancy, with her new partner Jay, the father of the child.
I've moved away from that scene now. Given it a miss, it's a road to death, basically. And it's not where I want myself, my fiancé, or my baby to go. The hardest part as a victim is telling yourself that it's not your fault. Hello? Yes. Oh, I'm nervous. So, to feel like that and to get up there, I think I'm very brave.
Yeah, hurry up.
After a 6-hour wait, the verdicts phoned in from the court. The jury couldn't be told about Gary Isherwood's past. It was her word against theirs.
Guilty.
I hate them for the time that they've taken away from me. And they're gonna hate me too, but I really don't care. Because they did this to me.